morning.
Good morning.
Happy Wednesday. Boy, I'm having a hard time keeping track of my days this week.
Well, you've been crazy busy.
Well,
the
it's
last
been a
3
busy
days.
week, that's true. And you know what? I haven't been going to spin, and spin does kind of keep me a little bit on schedule of days. So, happy Wednesday. We're talking, for those of you who love to hear Terry Mary, Maz's dad's stories, and I'm one of them, we're talking about a good Terry truism today. Maybe that's what we'll start calling them.
Oh, that's good.
Terry truisms. And I just want to say this quickly, because if you've lost a dad or a parent who was important to you, like both of us have, you lost a biological dad and I lost a stepdad, sometimes talking about them makes you sad.
It does.
But talking about them is ultimately the highest compliment that you could pay someone, because it means that they were important in their physical life and they have stayed important well past the time that they have left. Mm-hmm. And you have helped me have a sense of who he was, because I never got the chance to meet him. So here's something new I learned 2 weeks ago. I learned how to drive a stick shift. Now,
There is nothing more appealing, I think, than an American woman who can drive a stick shift. So, well done, Dana Kristen.
thank you. Thank you.
Especially one with an upper Midwest accent.
Yes, well, the accent is key. Okay, so let me just say, I did not grow up around stick shifts. I didn't really even know anybody who had one. My dad can certainly drive a stick shift, I think, a bit. My mom cannot. My stepdad did, but I never learned how to drive one until I met you, and you insisted on having a stick shift. You insisted that Quinn learn to drive a stick shift. Do you want to tell the Quinn Del Val stick shift story?
Yeah, if you've ever wondered about how you're going to teach your child how to drive, and I thought, I'm going to teach Quinn how to drive a stick shift, and I in my head, I panned out a few months of angst, and I even thought about a repair bill for the clutch. Yeah, it took 10 minutes.
You know, Quinn is nothing if not logical and determined.
Drove to Moorhead MSUM, drove around the parking lot for about 10 minutes. He goes, what now? And I just went, well, drive home. So he did. That was it.
Yes. And to Quinn's credit, he taught his former girlfriend to drive a stick shift in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I was in Moorhead, Minnesota.
I think that is incredibly
Los Angeles.
impressive. Yeah, she is an incredible young woman in many ways, not least because of that. Anyway, so the day that Quinn left for college, August of 2014, I said to Maz, that's it. I need to learn to drive a stick shift. Let's go. And we went out early that morning.
And you weren't bad then.
I wasn't too bad.
Did a decent hill start. I had to find a hill in Fargo first.
Not easy. I did okay. And Quinn and I drove that summer to Seattle for a family reunion. And I did do a very little bit of driving. Let's say that's a 2,500 mile round trip. I probably drove 40 of those miles. So little. But then I haven't done anything with it since. But here's the thing. I have a goal. I have two goals. One, I want us to be a one-car family, and it's become abundantly clear to me that the only way that will happen is if we become a one-car stick shift family, manual family. And two, I want to live in Europe someday. So it's kind of a do or die sort of thing. You can't do either of those things if you don't know how to drive a stick shift. So 2 weeks ago, I said to Maz, let's go do it. And I'm pretty good.
You are.
Yeah. I don't love it. I don't know why anybody would choose it. Don't come at me with, oh, you have so much more control of the road. What does that even mean?
I tried to explain it. This and what an offside is in soccer are the only two things that Dana Del Val cannot get round her head.
That is not at all true. There are many things, but they are two, yes. So, Dr. Mary, could you please give the Terry truism of this story?
I'll try not to swear because I was sworn at. So
you can swear. It's an adult program.
Oh, it's on YouTube. That's right. Anyway, so just to take a step back, one of the reasons Dana stopped learning, I think, is you stalled the car with Quinn was it 3 or 4 times?
3 or 40 times
And then
at a stoplight.
and then just got completely frustrated. People were beeping, honking the horns behind her, and she got out the car and said, "That's it, I'm done." And you didn't do anything for nearly 4 years.
More than
So
6 years.
when my dad was teaching me to drive, and I stalled the car on for the first of many occasions in the early days, he just screamed at me and said, "For the love of God, don't give a shit about the person behind you. What are they going to do? Drive over you?" So that's what I told Dana. Don't worry about the person behind you. What they're going to do? They
Ram into
they're
the
gonna,
back
what,
of
they're
us?
going to drive into you. It's their fault. They're the one who's caused an accident. They're not going to run you over.
Okay.
So that was it.
So
And
how?
that improved. You did stall a couple of times, and you just took it in neutral, started the car again, and
Took a deep breath.
Took a deep breath.
And so the reason that we're talking about that today is what? How are we equating that to something?
You know, never worry about what's behind you.
Dr. Mary, I'm just going to say this again, and I feel that if I say it to our audience, perhaps it will register for you more. When we talk about these conversations casually,
keep going.
you're super interesting. And then when we get here, you do
I-
like a one sentence. Here's how we're equating this. How many times in your life do you do something or not do something because you worry about what other people are going to think, say, or do? If you're sitting at a stoplight and you put the car into first and you try to go and you kill the if you stall, what's the worst that will happen? Likely, someone's going to honk their horn at you as you're starting the car.
That's what I said.
But that is an example for a much larger reminder. So we talked, I don't know, a month ago now maybe, about someone who had called me to ask me how he should deal with an employee who was having some relapses. And the employee said that he had gone to a happy hour with colleagues and felt some pressure to drink. So he had a beer, which caused a relapse. Now, the point of this is, who cares what other people think? If you're at happy hour and you aren't drinking for any reason, and you order a soda or a non-alcoholic this or whatever you order, who cares what somebody else thinks?
This is true.
So the stalled car is just a great non-judgmental example that everybody who's ever tried to learn to drive a stick shift can relate to, because it does feel like a high pressure moment. If you are at the stoplight, it turns green and you kill the car. You do start to think, oh my gosh, everyone behind me is so angry and they're going to start to get mad and they're going to honk their horn and they're going to drive around me furious and they're... Okay, let them. Let them. Other people's reactions are really none of your business. Is it more important to me to learn to drive a stick so that we can either become a one-car family and or live in Europe than it is how a stranger behind me is going to feel in the moment? Yes. So then I have to be okay with letting the stranger behind me experience, feel, do whatever it is that person's going to experience, feel, and do. It's not a reflection of me. I don't care what that person thinks. I'm trying to do something that will ultimately serve what I want. Anything else you'd like to add by saying very little?
As I said, don't worry about what's behind you.
You are such a butt sometimes.
It is true. A lot of people get too judgy about themselves. I mean,
Well, they get anxious.
I got anxious. Well, I probably explained the first time we got on a plane after I was sober. We were going to Hawaii, and I'd never been on a plane sober before, and I was nervous, but it was fine. And then a few months later, we went to England, and then a while after that, we went to Ireland. And each time, I thought about different things I was going to be anxious about, and they were just completely fine. And Dana just said to me, "It doesn't matter. We'll work it out." and everything was. When we talked about the trip to Ireland, it was perfectly fine.
Well, the other
It's better
thing,
than
the other
flying.
thing that's funny is that we sort of start to create all of these constructs in our mind. Like, well, if I don't take the free alcohol, isn't the flight attendant going to wonder what's wrong with me? The flight attendant doesn't care.
No, they don't.
He or she could give two hoots what you order.
In fact, they're probably delighted with the fewest people that actually consume alcohol on the plane. They're sitting there going, yes.
That's probably true. But ultimately, they don't care what you drink. Ultimately, I don't care what the person behind me thinks as I'm trying to learn to drive a stick shift. Ultimately, the bartender doesn't care what you order. We put pressure on ourselves by imagining what someone else is going to assume about us, when in actuality, as we've said 100 times, nobody's thinking about you because they're thinking about them exactly like you're thinking about
And if you think about it, a bartender is also probably going to be delighted if someone doesn't drink, because
Yeah.
that's one less thing for them to worry about.
So stop getting anxious about the equivalent to what if I stall the car at a green light, and just learn to breathe through it and learn to start the car again. Whatever that is a metaphor for, learn to start the car again. And
Amazing.
let everyone around you just be.
And of course, if it would have been wonderful to hang on to that piece of life, piece of evidence, piece of advice for life, actually would have helped me out quite a bit. Don't worry about what's behind you. It could be applied to absolutely anything.
Absolutely, it can. So, happy Wednesday. We will see you tomorrow with a guest, and I'm not going to announce it just in case it ends up switching. It's better to not jinx it.
It turned out pretty well last week.
It turned out amazingly, more than well. So, we'll see you tomorrow morning, 8:30. Have a great Wednesday.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.